Java is an island of Indonesia, with a population of over 141 million or 145 million as of 2015 census released in December 2015. Java is home to 56.7% of the Indonesian population and is the most populous island on Earth. The Indonesian capital city, Jakarta, is located on western Java. Much of Indonesian history took place on Java. It was the center of powerful Hindu-Buddhist empires, the Islamic sultanates, and the core of the colonial Dutch East Indies. Java was also the center of the Indonesian struggle for independence during the 1930s and 1940s. Java dominates Indonesia politically, economically, and culturally. Formed mostly as the result of volcanic eruptions, Java is the 13th largest island in the world and the 5th largest in Indonesia. A chain of volcanic mountains forms an east-west spine along the island. 3 main languages are spoken on the island: Javanese, Sundanese, and Madurese. Of these, Javanese is the dominant. It is the native language of about 60 million people in Indonesia, most of whom live on Java. Furthermore, most residents are bilingual, speaking Indonesian as the first or second language. While the majority of the people of Java are Muslim, Java has a diverse mixture of religious beliefs, ethnicities, and cultures. Java is divided into 4 provinces: West Java, Central Java, East Java, and Banten, and 2 special regions, Jakarta and Yogyakarta. Etymology. The origins of the name Java are not clear. One possibility is that the island was named after the Java.What plant, which was said to be common in the island during the time, and that prior to Indianization the island had different names. There are other possible sources. The word Jau and its variations mean beyond or distant, and, in Sanskrit, Yava means barley, a plant for which the island was famous. Yavadvipa is mentioned in India's earliest epoch, the Ramayana. Sugriva, the chief of Rama's army, dispatched his men to Yavadvipa, the island of Java, in search of Sita. It was hence referred to in India by the Sanskrit name Javaka. Java is mentioned in the ancient Tamil text Manimikalai by Chithalai Chaithanava that states that Java had a kingdom with a capital called Nagapuram. Another source states that the Java word is derived from a Proto-Austronesian root word Iawa that meaning home. The great island of Iabadu was mentioned in Ptolemy's Geographia, composed around 150 CE Roman Empire. Iabadu is said to mean barley island, to be rich in gold, and have a silver town called Agira at the west end. The name indicates Java, and seems to be derived from Hindu name Java.Dvipa. Geography. Java lies between Sumatra to the west and Bali to the east. Borneo lies to the north and Christmas Island is to the south. It is the world's 13th largest island. Java is surrounded by the Java Sea to the north, Sunda Strait to the west, the Indian Ocean to the south, and Bali Strait and Madura Strait in the east. Java is almost entirely of volcanic origin. It contains 38 mountains forming an east-west spine that have at one time or another been active volcanoes. The highest volcano in Java is Mount Semeru. The most active volcano in Java and also in Indonesia is Mount Merapi. More mountains and highlands help to split the interior into a series of relatively isolated regions suitable for wet rice cultivation. The rice lands of Java are among the richest in the world. Java was the first place where Indonesian coffee was grown, starting in 1699. Today, Coffea arabica is grown on the IJN Plateau by smallholders and larger plantations. The area of Java is approximately 150,000 square kilometers. It is about 1,000 kilometers long and up to 210 kilometers wide. The island's longest river is the 600 kilometers long Solo River. The river rises from its source in central Java at the Lowu volcano, then flows north and eastward to its mouth in the Java Sea near the city of Surabaya. Other major rivers are Brantas, Citrum, Simanak and Sarayu. The average temperature ranges from 22 degrees Celsius to 29 degrees Celsius. Average humidity is 75%. The northern coastal plains are normally hotter, averaging 34 degrees Celsius during the day in the dry season. The south coast is generally cooler than the north, and highland areas inland are even cooler. The wet season begins in November and ends in April. During that rain falls mostly in the afternoons and intermittently during other parts of the year. The wettest months are January and February. West Java is wetter than East Java, and mountainous regions receive much higher rainfall. The Parahiangan highlands of West Java receive over 4,000 mm annually, while the north coast of East Java receives 900 mm annually. Natural environment. The natural environment of Java is tropical rainforest, with ecosystems ranging from coastal mangrove forests on the north coast, rocky coastal cliffs on the southern coast, and low-lying tropical forests to high-altitude rainforests on the slopes of mountainous volcanic regions in the interior. The Javan environment and climate gradually alters from west to east, from wet and humid dense rainforest in western parts to a dry savanna environment in the east, corresponding to the climate and rainfall in these regions. Originally, Javan wildlife supported a rich biodiversity, where numbers of endemic species of flora and fauna flourished, such as the Javan rhinoceros, Javan banteng, Javan warty pig, Javan hawk eagle, Javan peafowl, Javan silvery gibbon, Javan lutung, Java mouse deer, Javan rusa, and Javan leopard. With over 450 species of birds and 37 endemic species, Java is a bird watcher's paradise. There are about 130 freshwater fish species in Java. Since ancient times, people have opened the rainforest, altered the ecosystem, shaped the landscapes and created rice paddy and terraces to support the growing population. Javan rice terraces have existed for more than a millennium, and had supported ancient agricultural kingdoms. The growing human population has put severe pressure on Java's wildlife, as rainforests were diminished and confined to highland slopes, or isolated peninsulas. Some of Java's endemic species are now critically endangered, with some already extinct. Java used to have Javan tigers and Javan elephants, but both have been rendered extinct. Today, several national parks exist in Java that protect the remnants of its fragile wildlife, such as Uyung Kulon, Mantili Moon Salik, Gedpan Grango, Balaran, Meru Batiri, and Alasbowo. Administrative division. The island as well as nearby islands are administratively jointly divided into 4 provinces: Banten, capital; Serang; West Java, capital; Bandung; Central Java, capital; Semarang; East Java, capital; Surabaya; and 2 special regions: Jakarta, Yogyakarta, and 4 cultural zones: Western Java, Central Java, East Java excluding Madura Island. Madura Island. History. Fossilized remains of Homo erectus, popularly known as the Java man, dating back 1.7 million years, were found along the banks of the Bengawan Solo River. The island's exceptional fertility and rainfall allowed the development of wet field rice cultivation, which required sophisticated levels of cooperation between villages. Out of these village alliances, small kingdoms developed. The chain of volcanic mountains and associated highlands running the length of Java kept its interior regions and peoples separate and relatively isolated. Before the advent of Islamic states and European colonialism, the rivers provided the main means of communication. Although Java's many rivers are mostly short, only the Brantas and Sala rivers could provide long-distance communication, and this way the valleys supported the centers of major kingdoms. A system of roads, permanent bridges and toll gates is thought to have been established in Java by at least the mid-17th century. Local powers could disrupt the routes, as could the wet season, and road use was highly dependent on constant maintenance. Subsequently, communication between Java's population was difficult. Hindu-Buddhist kingdoms era, the Taruma and Sunda kingdoms of western Java, appeared in the 4th and 7th centuries respectively, while the Kalinga kingdom sent embassies to China starting in 640. However, the first major principality was the Medang kingdom that was founded in central Java at the beginning of the 8th century. Medang's religion centered on the Hindu god Shiva, and the kingdom produced some of Java's earliest Hindu temples on the Dieng Plateau. Around the 8th century, the Sailendra dynasty rose in Kedu Plain and became the patron of Mahayana Buddhism. This ancient kingdom built monuments such as the 9th century Borobudur and Prambanan in central Java. Around the 10th century, the center of power shifted from central to eastern Java. The eastern Javanese kingdoms of Kediri, Singhasari and Majapahit were mainly dependent on rice agriculture, yet also pursued trade within the Indonesian archipelago and with China and India. Majapahit was established by Wijaya, and by the end of the reign of Hayam Wuruk claimed sovereignty over the entire Indonesian archipelago, although control was likely limited to Java, Bali and Madura. Hayam Wuruk's Prime Minister, Gajah Mada, led many of the kingdom's territorial conquests. Previous Javanese kingdoms had the power based in agriculture. However, Majapahit took control of ports and shipping lanes and became Java's first commercial empire. With the death of Hayam Wuruk and the coming of Islam to Indonesia, Majapahit went into decline. Spread of Islam and rise of Islamic sultanates. Islam became the dominant religion in Java at the end of the 16th century. During this era, the Islamic kingdoms of Demak, Cirebon, and Banten were ascendant. The Mataram Sultanate became the dominant power of central and eastern Java at the end of the 16th century. The principalities of Surabaya and Cirebon were eventually subjugated such that only Mataram and Banten were left to face the Dutch in the 17th century. Colonial periods. Java's contact with the European colonial powers began in 1522 with a treaty between the Sunda Kingdom and the Portuguese in Malacca. After its failure, the Portuguese presence was confined to Malacca and to the eastern islands. In 1596, a four-ship expedition led by Cornelis de Houtman was the first Dutch contact with Indonesia. By the end of the 18th century, the Dutch had extended their influence over the sultanates of the interior through the Dutch East India Company in Indonesia. Internal conflict prevented the Javanese from forming effective alliances against the Dutch. Remnants of the Mataram survived as the Surakarta and Yogyakarta principalities. Javanese kings claimed to rule with divine authority, and the Dutch helped them to preserve remnants of a Javanese aristocracy by confirming them as regents or district officials within the colonial administration. Java's major role during the early part of the colonial period was as a producer of rice. In spice-producing islands like Banda, rice was regularly imported from Java to supply the deficiency in means of subsistence. During the Napoleonic Wars in Europe, the Netherlands fell to France, as did its colony in the East Indies. During the short-lived Daendels administration, as French proxy rule on Java, the construction of the Java Great Post Road was commenced in 1808. The road, spanning from Enia in western Java to Panjarukan in East Java, served as a military supply route and was used in defending Java from British invasion. In 1811, Java was captured by the British, becoming a possession of the British Empire, and Sir Stamford Raffles was appointed as the island's governor. In 1814, Java was returned to the Dutch under the terms of the Treaty of Paris. In 1815, there may have been 5 million people in Java. In the second half of the 18th century, population spurts began in districts along the north-central coast of Java, and in the 19th century population grew rapidly across the island. Factors for the great population growth include the impact of Dutch colonial rule, including the imposed end to civil war in Java, the increase in the area under rice cultivation, and the introduction of food plants such as cassava and maize that could sustain populations that could not afford rice. Others attribute the growth to the taxation burdens and increased expansion of employment under the cultivation system, to which couples responded by having more children in the hope of increasing their family's ability to pay tax and buy goods. Cholera claimed 100,000 lives in Java in 1820. The advent of trucks and railways, where there had previously only been buffalo and carts, telegraph systems, and more coordinated distribution systems under the colonial government all contributed to famine elimination in Java and, in turn, population growth. There were no significant famines in Java from the 1840s through to the Japanese occupation in the 1940s. Furthermore, the age of first marriage dropped during the 19th century, thus increasing a woman's childbearing years. Independence. Indonesian nationalism first took hold in Java in the early 20th century, and the struggle to secure the country's independence following World War II was centered in Java. In 1949, Indonesia became independent, and the island has dominated Indonesian social, political and economic life, which has been the source of resentment of those residents in other islands. Demography. Demographic profile. Java has been traditionally demographically dominated by an elite class, while the masses remained agriculturally and fishing-bound and thus were sustained by high birth rates. This elite class has changed over the course of history, as cultural waves after waves lapped the island. There is evidence that South Asian emigres were among this elite, as well as Arabian and Persian immigrants during the Islamic eras. More recently, Chinese have become part of the economic elite of Java, although politically they generally remain sidelined. There are notable exceptions such as the governor of Jakarta, Basuki Tadjapurnama. Today, Java is increasingly urban. Modern culture has arrived in Java, yet only 75% of the island is electrified. Villages and the rice paddies still are a common sight, as well as a youthful population. Central Java, unlike the rest of the island, registers very slow population growth, yet it maintains a more youthful population than the national average. This is explained by heavy outflows from the countryside or from lesser cities in search of larger incomes as the region remains economically depressed. Java's population continues to relentlessly increase despite masses of Javans leaving. The island is the business, academic and cultural hub of the nation and therefore attracts millions of non-Javans to its cities. The inflows are most intense in regions surrounding Jakarta and Bandung, and diversity of demographics reflect this in those areas. Population development. With a combined population of 145 million in the 2015 census, which is estimated for 2014 at 143.1 million, Java is the most populous island in the world and is home to 57% of Indonesia's population, at over 1,100 people per square kilometer in 2014. It is also one of the most densely populated parts of the world, on par with Bangladesh. Every region of the island has numerous volcanoes, with the people left to share the remaining flatter land. Because of this, many coasts are heavily populated and cities ring around the valleys surrounding volcanic peaks. Thus, the physiological density of Java is exceptionally high, even by Asian standards. Notably, population growth rate more than doubled in economically depressed Central Java in the latest 2010 to 2015 period versus 2000 to 2010. Indicative of migration or other issues, there were significant volcanic eruptions during the earlier period. Approximately 45% of the population of Indonesia is ethnically Javanese, while Sundanese make a large portion of Java's population as well. The western third of the island has an even higher population density, of nearly 1,500 per square kilometer, and accounts for the lion's share of the population growth of Java. It is home to three metropolitan areas: Greater Jakarta, Greater Bandung, and Greater Cirebon. 1. Other islands are included in this figure, but are very small in population and area. NUSA Barang 100 square kilometers, Bawean 196 square kilometers, Karimun Jawa 78 square kilometers, Kambangan 121 square kilometers, Panaitan 170 square kilometers, Thousand Islands 8.7 square kilometers with a combined population of roughly 90,000. 2. Land area of provinces updated in 2010 census figures. Areas may be different than past results. 3. 2015 census prelim data released only first-level administrations only, where not available 2014 min. Health estimates are used in the place. For the 1970s to the fall of the Suharto regime in 1998, the Indonesian government ran transmigration programs aimed at resettling the population of Java on other less populated islands of Indonesia. This program has met with mixed results, sometimes causing conflicts between the locals and the recently arrived settlers. Nevertheless, it has caused Java's share of the nation's population to progressively decline. Jakarta and its outskirts, being the dominant metropolis, is also home to people from all over the nation. East Java is also home to ethnic Balinese, as well as large numbers of Madurans due to the historic poverty, ethnicity and culture. Despite its large population and in contrast to the other larger islands of Indonesia, Java is comparatively homogeneous in ethnic composition. Only two ethnic groups are native to the island, the Javanese and Sundanese. A third group is the Maduris, who inhabit the island of Madura off the northeast coast of Java, and have immigrated to East Java in large numbers since the 18th century. The Javanese comprise about two-thirds of the island's population, while the Sundanese and Maduris account for 20% and 10% respectively. The fourth group is the Betawi people that speak a dialect of Malay. They are the descendants of the people living around Batavia from around the 17th century. Betawis are Creole people, mostly descended from various Indonesian archipelago ethnic groups such as Malay, Sundanese, Javanese, Balinese, Minang, Bugis, Makassar, Ambonese, mixed with foreign ethnic groups such as Portuguese, Dutch, Arab, Chinese and Indian brought to or attracted to Batavia to meet labor needs. They have a culture and language distinct from the surrounding Sundanese and Javanese. The Javanese Kakawantantu page Iran explained the mythical origin of the island and its volcanic nature. 4 major cultural areas exist on the island. The Kefawana Javanese heartland, the north coast of the Pasisir region, the Sunderlands of West Java, and the eastern salient, also known as Blambangan, Madura, makes up a fifth area having close cultural ties with coastal Java. The Kefawana Javanese culture is the island's most dominant. Java's remaining aristocracy are based here, and it is the region from where the majority of Indonesia's army, business, and political elite originate. Its language, arts, and etiquette are regarded as the island's most refined and exemplary. The territory from Banyumas in the west through to Blitar in the east and encompasses Indonesia's most fertile and densely populated agricultural land. In the southwestern part of central Java, which is usually named the Banyumasan region, a cultural mingling occurred, bringing together Javanese culture and Sundanese culture to create the Banyumasan culture. In the central Javanese court cities of Yogyakarta and Surakarta, contemporary kings trace their lineages back to the pre-colonial Islamic kingdoms that ruled the region, making those places especially strong repositories of classical Javanese culture. Classic arts of Java include gamelan music and wayang puppet shows. Java was the site of many influential kingdoms in the Southeast Asian region, and as a result, many literary works have been written by Javanese authors. These include Kenarok and Kendeeds, the story of the orphan who usurped his king and married the queen of the ancient Javanese kingdom, and translations of Ramayana and Mahabharata. Pramodia Anantato is a famous contemporary Indonesian author, who has written many stories based on his own experiences of having grown up in Java, and takes many elements from Javanese folklore and historical legends. Languages. The three major languages spoken on Java are Javanese, Sundanese and Madurese. Other languages spoken include Betawi, Osing, Banyumasan, and Tengiris, Badwi, Kanjanese, and Balinese. The vast majority of the population also speaks Indonesian, often as a second language. Religion. Java has been a melting pot of religions and cultures, which has created a broad range of religious belief. Indian influences came first with Shaivism and Buddhism penetrating deeply into society, blending with indigenous tradition and culture. One conduit for this were the ascetics, called Resi, who taught mystical practices. A Resi lived surrounded by students, who took care of the master's daily needs. Resi's authorities were merely ceremonial. At the courts, Brahmin clerics and Pujanga legitimized rulers and linked Hindu cosmology to the political needs. Small Hindu enclaves are scattered throughout Java, but there is a large Hindu population along the eastern coast near Bali, especially around the town of Banyuwangi. Islam, which came after Hinduism, strengthened the status structure of this traditional religious pattern. More than 90% of the people of Java are Muslims, on a broad continuum between Abungan and Santri. The Muslim scholar of the Rit became the new religious elite as Hindu influences receded. Islam recognizes no hierarchy of religious leaders nor a formal priesthood, but the Dutch colonial government established an elaborate rank order for mosque and other Islamic preaching schools. In Javanese peasantry, the Kyi perpetuated the tradition of the Resi. Students around him provided his needs, even peasants around the school. Pre-Islamic Javan traditions have encouraged Islam in a mystical direction. There emerged in Java a loosely structured society of religious leadership revolving around Kiai, possessing various degrees of proficiency in pre-Islamic and Islamic law, belief and practice. The Kiai are the principal intermediaries between the village's masses and the realm of of the supernatural. However, this very looseness of KYA leadership structure has promoted schism. There were often sharp divisions between Orthodox Kyai, who merely instructed in Islamic law, with those who taught mysticism and those who sought reformed Islam with modern scientific concepts. As a result, there is a division between Santri, who believe that they are more orthodox in their Islamic belief and practice, with the Bungan, who have mixed pre-Islamic animistic and Hindu-Indian concepts with a superficial acceptance of Islamic belief. There are also Christian communities, mostly in the larger cities, though some rural areas of south-central Java are strongly Roman Catholic. Buddhist communities also exist in the major cities, primarily among the Chinese Indonesian. The Indonesian constitution recognizes 6 official religions. A wider effect of this division is the number of sects. In the middle of 1956, the Department of Religious Affairs in Yogyakarta reported 63 religious sects in Java other than the official Indonesian religions. Of these, 35 were in Central Java, 22 in West Java and 6 in East Java. These include Kehawan, Sumara, Subud, etc. The total membership is difficult to estimate, as many of their adherents identify themselves with one of the official religions.